Hello, thank you for joining us. We begin our report 13 days away from Election Day, as early voting is now underway in more than 30 states. The University of Florida's election lab reports nearly 25 million Americans have already cast their ballots, either in person or by mail. Vice President Kamala Harris is in Pennsylvania Wednesday for a CNN town hall. Former President Donald Trump took part in a town hall with faith leaders in Georgia. Between campaign events, both candidates are reacting to recent comments from Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, John Kelly. In an interview with the New York Times, Kelly said the former president, quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist. He also said Trump, quote, prefers the dictator approach to government. Earlier, Vice President Harris addressed Kelly's comments.
This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions.
The Trump campaign put out a statement Wednesday saying in part, quote, John Kelly has totally beclowned himself with these debunked stories he has fabricated because he failed to serve his president well while working as chief of staff. CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa joins us now. Bob, good to see you. What demographic of voter might actually be swayed by John Kelly's warnings about former President Trump?
It's good to be with you. Democrats are hoping, but not entirely sure, that these comments made by retired General Kelly, along with comments made by former Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming and other Republicans who are critical of Trump, could help sway suburban Republicans, especially in areas outside of Philadelphia, Detroit, and Milwaukee, and other battleground states. And there's a belief that conduct and character in this closing lap of the campaign could be determining factors for those who are still on the fence, who also consider themselves to be traditional Republicans.
That's interesting because a lot of times when we talk to voters, and you yourself, we mostly hear about policy over character. But just a few months ago, Democrats were calling Trump weird. Recently, Harris has taken a more serious tone, calling him dangerous. What's behind this shifted messaging?
It's not so much a shift, but a return to the center of gravity in the 2024 presidential campaign. For President Biden, much of his own presidential campaign in 2023 and 2024 was about American democracy and putting a real spotlight on former President Trump. January 6th, the attack on the Capitol, Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And Vice President Harris, once she became the presumptive nominee, largely shied away from having that kind of messaging dominate her campaign early on as she introduced herself to the country and focused on issues like the economy. But in this closing chapter of the campaign, these issues and these matters help to motivate Democrats and bring attention to Trump, who is making some inroads with some swing voters we can see on the campaign trail based on our reporting on the issues of immigration and the economy. And so by talking about retired General Kelly, democracy, it's a signal that the Democrats want to make the stakes seem to be very high. And that's how they see it privately and publicly.
A Trump advisor talked about the campaign's media strategy in an interview with Semaphore, saying, quote, it doesn't matter where we take President Trump. If he has the opportunity to actually have a discussion that's not totally contentious with an agenda, he knocks it out of the park. What do you make of that approach?
Well, that is a favorable view from the Trump campaign. The Harris campaign always positive about their candidate, the Trump campaign the same for theirs. But when you step back, you see this is a season of podcasts and celebrities in the presidential campaign. Former President Trump later this week will be on the podcast hosted by Joe Rogan, which is well circulated across the country, millions of listeners. And you have Bruce Springsteen and Eminem, the hip hop artist, on the trail for Vice President Harris alongside former President Barack Obama. It's all about trying to reach those voters who don't follow traditional media necessarily, who live their lives oftentimes on social media. And by having these podcast appearances, there is a hope that these type of voters will start to pay attention.
Robert Costa, thank you.
Thank you.